Very good afternoon, friends. Today we are going to discuss. Today we are going to discuss some of the social and economic factors that influence the Indian politics. The first among them is the caste. The second one is religion. The third one is gender. The fourth one is language. Language is not there in our syllabus, but we have to discuss about the caste, how the caste system has influenced the Indian politics. You all know that Indian society is very peculiar in having the caste system. There are only two societies in the world which have caste system. The first one is the Indian society. The second one is a Japanese society. In Japanese society, caste system is slowly fading. But in Indian society, the caste system is reinforcing itself. It is becoming much more stronger. And in today's class,
which year?
Hello.
Which year?
This is second year, fourth semester.
No, sir. Page number.
This is social factors. Page number 37.
37.
Yeah. This is
Okay.
an Indian political process. In Indian political process, there are certain social factors that influence the politics. In today's class, we'll be discussing about three important factors. In fact, this lesson is earmarked to know about three social factors that influence the caste system, that influence the politics in India. These three social factors include the caste system, the religion, and the gender. These are the three important factors that influence the politics of Indian society. And among these three factors, caste is a very old institution. In fact, caste is evolved in Indian society some 1,000 years back. So, caste has a history of nearly 2 or 3 millenniums. 2 or 3,000 years history is their caste. Caste system is evolved in India some 3,000 to 4,000 years back. But it continues to be a big force and powerful force in the Indian society. All the social relations, all the marriage relations, all the relations related to common dining are decided by caste in Indian society. Caste also has brought certain social evils like untouchability, Jogini system, Basavini system, likewise, bonded labor. So these are all the social evils. Those social evils can be contained very carefully, but the influence of caste system is much more rampant in Indian society. In today's class, we'll be discussing about the role of caste in Indian society. As we all know, that Indian society is classified into 4 varnas. They are called 4 varna or 4 jati: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. These are the 4 important varnas of Indian society. So these varnas are further divided into various castes. Around 5,000 castes are in existence in Indian society today. Some of them are North Indian castes, some of them are South Indian castes, some of them are castes belonging to Northeast India. But everywhere we go, there is caste system. The caste system can be broadly classified into 4 types of varnas. This is how the Brahmin, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. These are the 4 varnas in Indian society. This is called as the Chaturvarna system. In the Chaturvarna system. So this Chaturvarna system has divided the people, and this caste system has also influenced political sector, social sector, economic sector, cultural sector, technological sector, science and technology sector, industrial sector, agricultural sector. Almost all the sectors of public life are influenced by caste system. So in today's class, we'll be discussing about the influence of caste on Indian political system. Caste has a long history, as I have told you in the beginning. It has 1,000 years of history, or it may be having 2,000 or 3,000 years of history. But caste as such has no problem, but the problem of caste comes with casteism. Casteism means people who bind to their caste and treat the other caste as either inferior or superior. That is called as casteism. Casteism is very much rampant in Indian society. In Indian society, there are certain castes which are called as upper castes. There are certain castes which are considered as middle castes. There are certain castes which are considered as lower castes. So, again, within the caste, there are so many social groups. So, likewise, the Brahmins have so many groups. There are different castes and subcastes. The Kshatriyas have different castes and subcastes. The Vaishyas have different castes and subcastes. And likewise, in Sudras, there are castes and subcastes. So this is how the caste system is divided and subdivided into various types of subcastes and super subcastes. This is how the caste system is leading to casteism. Casteism is another important aspect that binds the people of a set of people into one important caste. Now, let us discuss what are the different types of influences of caste system on Indian society. The first one is caste system is more rampant during the times of elections. In elections, all the political parties, they count upon the caste. They count the votes on the basis of caste. And whichever the caste that has more number of votes in a particular constituency, the leader of that caste is given the ticket, or the party ticket, the Congress ticket, the BJP ticket, the TRS tickets, or the TDP tickets, or the tickets for the communist parties. So, while providing the tickets, party tickets to contest in the elections, all the political parties measure the caste. So, they measure the votes of the caste. Suppose in a particular constituency like Secunderabad, if there are no number of Padmashalis or Mudras, naturally, the party may prefer to give a Mudras to contest in the elections, or a Padmashali to contest in the elections. Suppose if there are more Brahmins in Vijayawada society, a Brahmin candidate is given ticket to contest in the elections by almost all the parties. So this is how caste system during election times counts upon the votes of the different castes in the society, and whichever caste that has more number of votes, the leaders of that caste is given tickets in the elections. That is one thing. So during the election times, caste is prevalent in all the societies. In fact, the word caste is derived from a Portuguese word, castio. Castio. In fact, in India, we call it as jati or kulam or jati more. But this jati is translated into English as caste. The word caste itself is derived from a Portuguese word, castio. Castio means people living with the same lineage, with the same caste, the same social bonding is called as caste. So, caste has an influence on politics. Number one, what is the influence of caste in politics? Number one is The influence of caste is more rampant during the times of elections. During the times of elections, caste is more rampant in almost all the societies in the world, in Indian society. In India, in Lok Sabha, there are 543 constituencies. In all the 543 constituencies, political leaders and political parties tries to give tickets only on the basis of caste. So this is how, during the times of elections, the influence of caste is more rampant. This is one. And during the times of elections, all the political parties count upon the votes of different political parties, different castes. Which caste is having more votes? Sometimes the individual castes, or sometimes the community, caste communities. For example, the Dalits, the Harijans, the scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, other backward castes. Even within the other backward castes also, there are Yadavs, Gauds, there are Gondars, there are Mudraj, there are Padmashalis. Likewise, there are different castes. So while giving the political tickets, political parties look upon which caste is having more votes. If a particular caste has a more number of votes, then a leader from that political caste is given tickets to contest in the elections. So this is how, during the times of elections, the caste has a role to play. So almost political parties give their tickets on the basis of the number of castes, number of votes to a particular caste, and they give their tickets. So this is the first point. And second point is, the government also formulates certain policies to bring empowerment in some of the depressed classes, depressed sections, depressed classes, depressed castes. So in Indian society, there are certain sections of people who have suffered historical injustice. What is a historical injustice? Historically, some of the castes were denied of education, denied of public health, denied of protected water, and they were pushed into poverty for the last so many centuries. So certain castes have faced social injustice in the respective societies. That's why the government wants to do social justice to the castes which are historically faced injustice, and it formulates policies. So this is how caste is taken as a measurement to bring policies, welfare policies and programs for the backward caste, for the oppressed sections, or historically injustice sections. So the first influence of caste system is elections. The second influence is government policies. The government policies also provide certain castes an advantage because these castes have historically at a disadvantageous position. Historically, they are denied of education. Historically, they were denied of public health. Historically, they were denied of protected water, irrigation water, and various other things. Historically, certain castes were witnessing the untouchability as a social evil. So, to bring back these castes to the mainstream and empower the people of that caste, the government formulates certain policies and welfare programs. For example, recently, the Telangana government has formulated the Dalita Bandhu program, the Dalita Bandhu policy. What do you mean by Dalita Bandhu? So that means whoever is poor in scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, or particularly the Malas or the Majika community, or different castes in the scheduled castes, it wants to empower them with these policies. So the government intends to empower those sections which were historically witnessing injustice. There was a lot of injustice, historical injustice. There was social injustice to these sections. So to bring back these people into the mainstream and do social justice to these people, the government policy formulate the policies and programs for the betterment of these people. This is how the second important aspect is government and policies and programs to empower certain castes. The first point is the caste influences the election process. The second point here is caste influence the government policies and programs. The government formulates the policies and implement the welfare programs based on the caste system, because historically certain castes were denied of their role, denied of their basic necessities: food, clothing, shelter, health and education, protected water, drinking water, irrigation water. So these basic facilities were denied to scheduled castes, other backward castes for so many centuries. That's why these castes were facing social injustice in the history. So the government of India, under the directions of the Indian Constitution, has promulgated certain policies, formulated certain policies to empower these sections and bring them to the mainstream so that equality can be established. Social equality can be established. So the influence of caste on Indian politics is manifold. The first point is caste has an influence on elections times. The second point is caste has an influence during the times of government policies, policy formulation and policy implementation. This is the second important point. And third point is caste is used as an indicator for providing reservations. Reservations are three types: reservations in education, reservations in public employment, and reservations in politics. So there are the three types of reservations that our Indian Constitution provides for. Article 15 and Article 16 of the Indian Constitution provides for reservation to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and other backward castes in their educational opportunities and public employment opportunities. So this is how the Constitution of India has strategically formulated the policy of reservations under the name of protective discrimination. It wants to discriminate certain sections which are historically facing injustice and protect them and empower them with economic opportunities. That's how the government provides reservations to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Generally, the scheduled castes have 15% reservations and scheduled tribes have 7% reservation. And other backward castes have 49% reservations. So this is how the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward castes get their reservations with caste as an indicator. Here, the caste is considered as an indicator. With the caste as an indicator, every candidate can claim his reservation in public employment, education, and also in politics. In politics also, some of the parliamentary constituencies are reserved for scheduled castes, and some of the assembly constituencies are reserved for scheduled castes. And likewise, in the local self-governments, Gram Panchayats, Mandal Praja Parishads, Jilla Parishads, and various other stages, the reservations are strictly implemented. For example, at the village panchayat level, some of the panchayats are reserved for scheduled caste. The Gram Sarpanch should be a scheduled caste man. Or in some villages, the village Sarpanch should be a women village Sarpanch belonging to scheduled caste. So this is how reservations in political sector, Gram Panchayat, Mandal Parishad, Jilla Parishad, State Assembly and Parliament. In all these constituencies, during all these elections, reservations are provided to the people who belong to these sections. So here, the caste system is an indicator for getting political reservations. Likewise, caste is also an indicator for getting reservations in education system to get a seat in a degree college or a PG college, or to get a seat in MBBS, or to get a seat in BTech or engineering or MBA. The government implements the reservation policy. With the reservation policy, some people get the reservations. So this is how in public employment also reservation facilities are there. In group 1 posts, group 2 posts, group 3 posts, group 4 posts. The government also has public employment facilities. In all these facilities, the government implement the reservations. So certain posts are reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. For example, in Telangana state government, the scheduled castes are given reservations by Telangana Public Service Commission in certain jobs. And likewise, the UPSC also, Union Public Service Commission, provides certain reservations during in public employment also. So this is how reservations are also there in public employment. In public employment, particularly group 1, group 2, group 3 posts, group 4 posts for lower division clerks, superintendents, senior assistants, MRO posts, deputy collectors, while selecting the IAS officers, IPS officers. The principle of reservations is there. So this is how caste is an indicator for getting reservations in public employment, public education, and political sector. So this is the third important point of caste influencing the Indian politics. So the first one is the elections. Can you please tell me how politics are influenced by caste during the times of elections? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
How caste is influencing the Indian elections? Can you understand how the caste is influencing the Indian elections? During the times of elections, all the political parties count the number of each caste in a constituency and they determine which is the major caste in a particular area. And they contest with a leader belonging to that caste in the elections. So that's how politics are influenced by caste system during the times of elections. During the times of elections, all political parties give their political tickets to contest in the elections based on caste. So this is how caste is influencing the election system. How the government policies are influenced by caste system? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
How the government policies are influenced by caste system?
By providing the particular schemes to the particular caste and giving tickets to the particular persons belong to particular caste.
That's good.
That's kind of schemes are provided by the government.
Yeah, this is the second point. First point is caste is influencing the elections. Second point is caste is influencing the government policies. In all the government policies, the government wants to give advantage and benefits to those castes which are historically denied of education, public health, protected water, and historically they were oppressed by the upper castes. So those sections, for example, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, are given more policies and programs and empower them with economic empowerment. The government provides more policies. For example, the Telangana government has brought in the Dalit Bandhu program. What do you mean by Dalit Bandhu program? Can you say? Does anybody know about Dalit Bandhu program? Hello? Have you heard about Dalit Bandhu program of Telangana government?
Yes, sir.
What is about it?
Giving some financial support to the SC/ST people for their development.
Who are historically denied, who are historically facing untouchability, who are historically facing injustice. And now the Indian Constitution has given a new lease of life with social equality. So the government is formulating certain policies for the benefit of these sections. So this is how the government provides certain relief to the sections which are facing historical injustice, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward castes, and others. So this is the second important aspect of the caste influencing the politics. And the third important aspect of caste influencing politics is reservations, through reservation system. What are reservations? Have you heard about reservations in India? Hello?
Booking, sir, booking.
Reservations, not railway booking, I'm telling. Reservations or the government earmarks certain percentage for education and also jobs to the Hello? Can you please mute your
Class వచ్చింది.
Amma, mute చేసుకోండమ్మా.
పంపినా ఈమె రమ్యక్కుంది లైన్ లో.
హలో
చెప్పలే.
mute చేసుకోండమ్మా. So this is second point is government policies are formulated for the benefit of
చూస్తున్నాను.
Amma, kindly mute your phones.
దేన్ని కొట్టాలి ఇప్పుడు నేను?
Hello?
Nikita, can you please mute? Mute రాలేదే. ఆగు.
Hello? So this is how reservations is kind of third kind of influence that politics is influenced by caste. The government is providing reservations in educational institutions, employment, public employment, and in politics to contest in the elections for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and backward castes, certain reservations. So this is how certain seats are reserved for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward castes in educational institutions and in public employment, and also in offices of Gram Panchayats, Mandal Parishad, Jilla Parishad, Assembly, and Parliament. So this is called as political reservations, reservations in public employment, reservations in education sector. In these three modes of reservations, the government is providing the caste as a basis for implementing the reservations. This is the third influence that politics is influenced by caste. And fourthly, political mobilization. Political mobilization is also another important aspect based on caste. What do you mean by political mobilization? Political parties mobilize the people on the basis of caste and their problems. There are certain problems to different castes. All the castes have traditional occupations. For example, the weavers, likewise the bidi workers, likewise the carpenters, the goldsmiths, the silversmiths. So these are called as the traditional castes. The professions belonging to traditional castes are facing so many problems in modern world. So the political parties, in order to do justice to these causes, they mobilize the people and they bring the problems of that cause to the notice of the government. So that's called as the political mobilization. So political mobilization on the basis of caste is done in modern times. Take for example, the people belonging to weavers community. The weavers community are facing so many problems in modern times because the mechanization of textile industry brought a lot of inconvenience and sorrow to the families of the Padmashali communities. So likewise, all the weaver communities have suddenly become poorer with the advent of mechanization and machine-made garments. So as a result, there are also some of the suicides in weaving sections, weaver sections, and also beady leaf workers' families. So some of the political parties want to bring back these communities to the light of the government, and it want to notice these problems of this caste to the government. They mobilize the people based on the caste, and they bring the problems of that caste to the notice of the government. This is called as political mobilization. Political parties bring the problems of washermen. Political parties bring the problems of, what do you say, cobblers. Political parties bring the problems of the Nai Brahmins to the notice of the government. And they bring solutions to the problems of the traditional occupations that are there in the Indian society. So that's how political mobilization based on the caste and the problems of the caste is much more easier in the modern times. So caste is used to mobilize the people on political grounds to bring the problems of the people to the notice of the government. So the problems of the Dalits, the problems of the backward castes, the problems of Brahmins, the problems of Vaishyas, the problems of Yadavs, the problems of Gauds. So this is how every community has its own problems. So in order to bring the problems of in order to bring these problems to the notice of the government, the political parties mobilize these sections and they say they take the support of this cause and they search for solutions for this cause, the problems of this cause. This is called as political mobilization. Political mobilization on caste lines is very much rampant in Indian society. We have problems of Gauds because mostly they are tidy tappers. And there are problems of Yadavs. There are problems of Kurmas. There are also problems of Brahmins. There are also problems of Vaishya community. So every traditional caste and its professions has its own problems. So to bring the problems of the different castes to the notice of the government, political parties mobilize the support of those castes. That is called as political mobilization. And political mobilization based on caste is very much rampant in the recent past. And all the parties, they try to take the caste support as their vote banks. For example, the Congress party used to take the Brahmins as their vote bank in North India. Likewise, the BJP used to take the political mobilization of Vaishyas, traders, industrialists, and businessmen as their vote banks. And likewise, the DMK, the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam in Tamil Nadu, and TDP party, Telugu Desam party, and TRS party, they spearheaded the movements for the rights of the backward castes. The backward caste includes Yadavs, Gauds, Kurmas, Kurmagullas, washermen, likewise, barbers. So these communities have their own problems. So the problems of these communities are taken by the political parties and they are represented to the government. And in turn, these castes lend their support to different political parties. So that's how different political parties take the support of these castes as their vote banks. So when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister, she used to protect the interests of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So scheduled castes were considered to be the vote bank of the Congress party as long as Srimati Gandhi was the Prime Minister. She was the president of the Congress party. So likewise, different political parties take different castes as their vote banks by making political mobilizations, by making the problems of the caste to the notice of the government and solving them. So this is how political mobilization is also one of the important aspects of caste. And likewise, there are also certain social movements based on caste. In modern times, in fact, the 20th century is a century of political and social movements. We have so many social movements. We have farmers' movements, we have Dalit movements, we have tribal movement, we have women's movements, we have students' movements, we have workers' movements. Likewise, there are so many movements. A movement is to protest against the policies of the government and get justice from the government. That's called as a social movement. Social movements and political movements are also based on caste. What are the social movements that are there in Telangana, for example? In Telangana, there is a movement called Dandora movement for the categorization of scheduled castes. And there are also movements by backward castes. There are also movements by Dalits. There are also movements by Muslims. So likewise, the social movements based on caste and religion are called as social movements. These social movements demand the government certain welfare policies. They bargain with the government. And in the bargain, the government will create policies and programs that will benefit these castes. So this is how social movements are also occurring due to the caste. Caste is an indicator for having social movements. In fact, in Indian society, there are so many tribal movements during Britishers period, in the post-independence period. There are so many tribal movements, Gonds, Kollams, Koyas, and likewise we have Banjaras. So likewise, there are so many scheduled tribes. All the scheduled tribes used to have their movements and they demanded the state to have welfare programs and welfare activities. They want more welfare measures to their particular caste. So these caste movements are called as social movements. The social movements in India are based on caste. So caste is influencing Indian politics in many ways. The first one is caste is influencing during election times that I have told you in the beginning. The second one is caste is influencing the government policies and programs that are intended to protect the interests of certain castes. And thirdly, the government is implementing the political reservations in public employment, reservations in education sector based on the caste. And fourthly, there are political mobilizations based on caste. Different political parties try to bring the notice of the government of all the problems of different castes. So this is called as political mobilization. And different political parties try to bring the votes of certain castes as their vote bank. So this is how social movements also occur. There are also certain social movements in Indian society based on the caste. There are scheduled caste movements, scheduled tribes movements, backward caste movements, likewise. So this is how caste is an indicator to protest against the government and bargain with the government and get benefits from the government. This is called a social movement. When people make a movement, they demand for more benefits. For demanding benefits, they make a movement, Dalit movement, farmers movement. Farmers movement make demands for higher prices for their products. Students movement, students demand higher qualifications, higher scholarships for them. Unlike the workers movement, it demands more wages to the workers. Women's movement demands more freedom to women and punishment to the culprits of domestic violence. So likewise, Indian society is witnessing so many social movements. And among these social movements, there are also caste movements. There is scheduled caste movements, there is Dalit movements, there is scheduled tribes movement, there is backward caste movements, there are Gauds movement, there are Yadavs movement, there are movements of Kshatriyas, there are movements of Brahmins, there are movements of Koyas, Kollams, Gonds, Rajgons, Koyas. So likewise, there are various movements based on caste, and these caste movements demand the government certain welfare programs to their particular caste and empowering the movement, empowering the community with the government policies and programs. This is also another important aspect. So political parties lend support to political movements and social movements. So this is how social movements in India occur based on the caste system. And again, caste is also influencing the ministry formations. The ministry formation. Once the general elections are over, a new prime minister is elected. At the state level, new chief minister is elected. And a new prime minister and new chief minister forms the ministries. And in the ministry, there are different castes of people. It should give representation to scheduled castes. It should give representation to backward castes. It should also give representation to minorities. It should also give representation to scheduled tribes, likewise. So likewise, in the ministry formation, in the formation of ministry, cabinet, the prime minister gives importance to different castes, whether all the castes are represented in ministry or not. Likewise, in the state government, the state chief minister also looks whether his ministry is composed of all the castes or not. How many Reddis are there? How many Kammas are there? How many Brahmins are there? How many Yadavs are there? How many Gauds are there? How many scheduled castes are there? How many scheduled tribes are there? How many Muslim minorities are there? How many Christian minorities are there? This is how the chief minister counts. And accordingly, the chief minister selects all the ministers based on their caste. So this is how, in the ministry formation also, the caste is an indicator. So please tell me, what are the influence of caste in Indian politics? Hello? 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 Can anybody tell me how the caste is influencing the Indian politics?
Because
there are various.
Because the caste is so important thing, so that's why.
Yeah. How the caste is influencing the Indian politics?
Because the so many castes are there.
I told you. The first point is there are so many castes, of course. The first point is caste is influencing the elections. The second point is caste is influencing the government policies. The third point is caste is influencing the reservation system. The fourth point is caste is influencing the political mobilization. The fifth point is caste is influencing the social movements. The sixth point is caste is influencing the ministry formation, the formation of ministry at the central government and at the state government. At the central government, the prime minister gives representation to various castes, backward castes, upper castes, lower castes, middle castes, Dalits, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward castes. So likewise, he gives importance to all the castes to represent his ministry. Likewise, at the state level, all the castes are to be represented. The chief minister says that all the castes are to be represented in his ministry. So in the ministry formation, caste is also becomes an indicator, and it indicates the influence of the caste on Indian politics. That means in the ministry formation, particularly, the caste is an influence. So tell me, how the caste is influencing the Indian politics? What is the first point I told you? The first point is
Government policies.
Emma?
Government policies.
Yeah, the government policies. The first point is caste is influencing elections.
Caste is influence the election.
The first point. Second point, caste is influencing government policies. Okay. The third point is caste is influencing the reservation system. Reservations. Have you heard about reservations? Reservations for scheduled castes, reservations for scheduled tribes, SC reservation, ST reservation, OBC reservation. So likewise, seats in colleges and employment opportunities in various jobs are reserved on the basis of caste. That is called reservations in public employment, education, and politics. And fourth one is caste is influencing the political mobilization. That means political parties are ventilating the grievances of different castes and bargaining with the government and taking these castes as their vote banks. That's called as caste mobilization or political mobilization. Likewise, caste also has an influence on social movements. What are the social movements that we have in India? What are the social movements?
Dandora movement, tribal movement.
Yeah, Dandora movement, tribal movement, women's movement, students movement, trade union movement, farmers movement. These are various social movements. So among these movements also, caste has an influence. So there are certain movements which are mainly done by different castes. For example, Yadavs of Bihar made a movement, and Gauds of Telangana have made a movement. And likewise, the tribals of Telangana, Koyas, have a movement. And Brahmins of Uttar Pradesh have a movement. And backward castes in Tamil Nadu have led a movement. So these movements are caste-based movements. The social movements are also based on caste. So while we are studying the influence of politics, caste and politics, we must not forget the influence of caste on social movements. And likewise, caste also has an influence on ministry formation. All the ministries are formulated based on caste. For example, after the general elections, the Prime Minister and Chief Minister form the ministries and they allocate the ministries and they make some people as cabinet ministers, state ministers and deputy ministers based on their caste. So that's how the Chief Minister sees that all the castes of the state are represented in the ministry. And likewise, the Prime Minister looks that all the castes of the country are to be represented in his ministry. So in the ministry formation also, castes are represented. And likewise, there are also caste associations. Have you heard about caste associations? Caste associations gurinchi vinnarama? What are the caste associations? We have caste associations like MRPS, Madhya Reservation Porad Samiti, Mala Mahanadu. Likewise, we have Kapunadu. We have Kamasangam. Likewise, we have ABCD, All Brahmin Community Development Organization. So these are all called caste organizations. These caste organizations also bargain with the government, and they also influence the government and officials to get their interests protected. So there are also caste associations. And likewise, there is also co-option of caste by the political leaders. So some of the political leaders, they accommodate the leaders of different castes into the political system, into the administrative system. They provide jobs, they provide nominated posts, they provide membership in various organizations likewise. This is how caste has an influence on Indian politics. Can you please tell me how the caste is influencing Indian society in 5 or 6 subheadings? Hello? What is the influence of caste in Indian politics? The first point is?
Yes to elections.
Elections. Second point is?
Government policies.
Government policy. Third one is?
Reservations, ST, college seats.
Yeah, reservations. Fourth one is?
Social
movements.
Social movements.
Social movements. And fifth point is political mobilization. Political mobilization is also done on the basis of caste. Okay. The sixth point is all the ministry formations. Ministry formation. You heard about the ministry formation? The Prime Minister forms his ministry with different ministers. And likewise, the chief minister at the state level form the ministry at different castes and caste leaders. So this is called as ministry formation. In the ministry formation also, caste plays a very important role. And likewise, there are also caste associations. There are also caste associations in the society. What are the caste associations we have come across? Can you please tell me any caste associations? The Mudras associations, the Padmashali associations, likewise the Barbers Association, the Yadavs Association, the Gauds Association, the Reddys Associations, the Kamma Association, the Brahmins Associations. These are all the caste associations. These associations are formed to protect the economic interests of their caste groups. At the same time, they also bargain with political parties and they also bargain with the government for the benefits. So caste associations are also formed. This is also an influence on politics. So this is how caste is influencing the Indian politics in different ways. The first one is caste is influencing the elections. The second one is the caste is influencing the government policies. The third one is caste is influencing the reservation policy. The Article 15 and Article 16 of the Indian Constitution provides for reservations. And fourth one is caste is influencing the political mobilization. The fifth one is caste is influencing the social movements. The sixth one is caste is influencing the ministry formation. And sixth one is caste associations are formed to influence the politics. These are the 6 types of ways through which caste is influencing the politics. Can you please briefly tell me how the caste is influencing the Indian politics? Hello? Chepama.
Caste is influence to elections.
Right.
Caste is influence to government policies.
Right.
Caste is influence
the reservation seats.
Right.
Caste is influence to social movements.
Right.
Caste influence to policies mobilization.
Political mobilization.
Political mobilization.
Yeah, wonderful. And lastly, caste is influencing
The caste association.
Yeah, caste association. And likewise, caste is influencing the ministry formation. The ministry formation. The ministry formation. The chief minister and prime minister forms the ministry based on the caste. So if you could write these 6 points in the examination, you will definitely get good marks in the examination because the influence of caste on Indian politics will definitely come as an essay type question. If it doesn't come as an essay type question, it will definitely come as a short answer question. Okay, Nama? So you please have a glance over the textbook. And if you find any doubts, don't hesitate to ask me. You please ask me. You can interrupt me at any point of time. You can ask me all your doubts. Okay, Nama? Hello?
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So tomorrow,
Thank you.
we'll be discussing about religion. How religion is influencing the Indian. discussing the influence of religion on Indian politics. After that, we'll also be discussing about the influence of gender on Indian politics. Okay, Nama, thank you. Thank you for.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Amma.
Thank you all.